Welcome to episode 63 of I Thought I Knew How, a podcast about knitting and life and all sorts. I'm your host, Anne Frost, and this episode was recorded on July 23rd, 2021. We are going on day 2 of the I-91 shop hop together this time, and there is a lot to see and do, so let's get started. Thank you to Keeper1154 for leaving a kind comment with your 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts. It is a rare thing these days when someone tells you you are working too hard. So I appreciate that. Thank you for taking the time to leave a comment with your review because it is one of the ways that the show becomes more visible to others. Okay, we have a lot to do today as we go into day 2 of the I-91 shop hop yarn crawl. Last time we hit the shops in the New Haven, Connecticut area. This time we are going to be visiting the shops in the Hartford area, and because I have 3 giveaways and 3 episodes in which to give them away, we are going to hop up to Northampton, Massachusetts too and visit Northampton Wools in this episode. Be sure to listen to the end for details of this second giveaway and how to enter. If you are working the shops from south to north, you'd visit Village Wool in Glastonbury, U&U in Windsor, and then Marji's Yarncrafts in Granby before heading up to Northampton. However, because these are the shops closest to me, I actually did a loop hitting Marji's first and then Village Wool and finished at U&U. We are visiting the most stores in this episode, so we're going to hop right into our visit to Marji's Yarncrafts. I'm here at Marji's Yarncrafts in Granby, Connecticut, and today I'm actually going to be in the shops that are sort of in the area that I live in. And so I've been in Marji's quite a few times, but it's actually my first time being back since the lockdown and the pandemic. As I look around, I can see that there's been some flow changes since I was last here, but a lot of it is still very similar as far as feel and coziness and comfort. Those are the words that I think of as I come into the shop. Marji does a fantastic job with her store samples. Marji is a prolific knitter herself. She's a designer. I can tell that she really understands yarn and how yarn behaves, and her store samples really show the yarn off to best effect. For instance, in the center of the shop right now, she has a whole selections of hats knitted of different styles, different types of knitting, really in prime examples of the type of yarn that really would suit the pattern. So there's hats with baubles, and there's Fair Isle done in a nice grippy wools, and Erin's, and basic rib hats that are knit in very subtly colored yarns that really showcase the yarn and give you an excellent idea of what you can expect from what you buy here. There is a whole corner of Koigu, there is Malabrigo, there's Barocco yarns, Cascade 220, and she also has the Encores and the Sirdar yarns. And within those brands, she has a wide range of the different varieties that those brands cover too. And likewise, she really invests her time well in displaying things beautifully. I always think of yarn stores as candy shops. They are grown-up candy shops for me. But her displays utilize quite a few antiques, as well as some more modern shelving, but there's enough antique shelves and older wood and really beautiful pieces from the past that you almost feel like you're walking into a general store full of yarn, which, let's face it, is the dream. My favorite corner of the main shop is what I think of as the baby corner. It's not a baby corner. It's actually the plant fiber corner. And there's a lot of cottons and linens and things available, and a lot of the samples in that corner are little baby sweaters and things. And it's just such a bright, cheery, happy corner. The one thing that I did notice right away when I walked in, as you look to your left, there is the door to the second room. And if there's anything I love about a yarn store, it is the second room. You have a whole big, beautiful room of yarn, and then you have this wonderful bonus room just waiting for you. And the second room used to be mostly taken up by inventory and classroom space. And since the pandemic, she's actually moved more of the store back here. So back here, you will find a lot of the yarns that she has marked down, but also some of my favorite store samples actually are back here. One thing I appreciate about Marji is that she also has crocheted pieces on display. For those of you who are crocheters out here, there is a beautiful scrap crochet scarf called, let me see, the Gradient Flower Cowl from Crochet, From Scraps to Sensational. She's crocheted up with Koigu KPPPM. She has it available as a kit. The crochet motifs are a series of flowers interlinked one with another. They're only about maybe 2 inches across, and it's open work with these sort of flowers in between. It's absolutely beautiful. There's a crocheted blanket that is hanging next to it. This is a shop where, most of the work is done in knitting, but crocheters were not ignored here, which is always a positive thing. I am going to go sit down with Marji and talk to her about the shop and how things are going after the pandemic. And we will join you doing that in just a moment. Marji and I settled in her back room and we had a nice chat about the shop. Marji, thanks for sitting down with me today.
Hi, thanks, Anne. It's wonderful to have you here and fun to have somebody come in and look at the shop through different eyes.
You are part of the I-91 shop hop coming up, and I'm here touring through a little early, and I saw that the shop is just as bright and vibrant as I remembered it being. Yours has a very homey, comfortable feel to it. Is there an overall aesthetic or goal that you are looking for as you are organizing your shop and bringing yarns in and things?
Mostly that I like working with color, so I like to try to highlight some of the multicolored garments and things that we have, but I also always like to make sure there's plenty of very simple things out, very knittable things that people can take on their vacation and stuff like that. That's relaxing to knit, more relaxing than color work, and requires less thinking. My biggest goal for Shop Hop is to have it all clean and neat and well stocked. That's the most important thing, and I'm still working on putting some kits together for some of my designs, things that I might not have had kitted up before.
One of the things I love about your shop is how many samples that you do have knit up and ready for people to see and be able to experience the yarn as it will be when they're using it. You also are, I don't know if it's accurate to say you're a flagship store for Koigu, but I think of you as being a flagship store for Koigu. You have a beautiful wall of it in one corner of the shop.
Well, I'm not sure that that title has been bestowed upon me, but I will say that I have, I think, way over 200 colors, and I do keep it well stocked in amounts that make sense. And a lot of my shop models are that I've designed and whatever are in Koigu, because I really do love working with it, and the color possibilities just make it never boring.
You mentioned your kits. You are a designer as well as a yarn shop owner. Is there anything that you have worked on in the last year or two that you want to draw our attention to?
Well, actually, I think my brain went dead during COVID, and I really didn't have anything much coming out of it. So I spent a lot of my time, my extra time, working on shop models that weren't my designs, but just to sort of beef up the shop models in the shop, because I am the one who does the greatest part of the knitting for the models, and it's obviously incredibly time consuming. So catching up on it is a great thing. I'm hoping that those who come in will see a lot of new things since I did pandemic knitting like a crazy woman.
That's totally understandable. I absolutely get that. And I did notice it looks like there's more even in the baby area. Did you knit more of those, or am I imagining that?
We did put together some new baby stuff and sort of have brought in a few different yarns in that area, which I'm excited about. And the other thing is I brought in a lot more Madeline Tosh, especially the Tosh DK. So we've got some more models underway for that also. You know, I buy what I'm in love with mostly and I feel excited about, so I want to knit it just as much as everybody else.
Awesome. That was actually going to be my next question, was how do you decide what to bring in? But I suppose if it's something you love, then others are going to love it as well.
That is part of it. That's on the more expensive or kind of a little bit more out there kinds of things. It's definitely got to be something that I'm in love with. Otherwise, I generally try to fill the holes. You know, if I don't have like a chunky superwash wool or mostly wool, then that's the next thing I bring in. I like to try to make sure that in each category I have a variety of different fibers, washability, textures, and whatever. So that's usually the basis for how I make a lot of my decisions.
I know for my family that has been appreciated because I have 2 younger daughters who are getting into knitting. And one of the like we give them an allowance and they earn money other ways, and then they have to pay for things like that themselves. That's sort of how we do it in our household. So I love when they are ready to knit something new. This is one of the shops we come to because you do have the availability at the different price points for them.
And that's really, really important because there are quality yarns at every price point. And that's certainly something that I consider when I'm purchasing a new line, especially if I'm going to bring it in 10 or 20 colors. It's got to be a good value for what you're getting. And I don't want to have somebody come in and not be able to give them a variety of choices at different price points, all of which I think are nice. Yeah. And so that's always been important to me, and I keep up with that. At the more expensive ones, it's a stretch, but at the same time, then they better be really cool and really gorgeous and really nice fiber, and then they are worth that price.
Right. That's the value that we get, or one of the valuable things that we get from a local yarn store is that you act as a curator for us. You know, there's all these online shops now, but you don't know what you're getting. You can't feel the yarn, touch the yarn. You get it and it might look pretty on a screen, but when you get it in your hands, it's not what you had hoped it was. And so that's why local yarn shops are so important for knitters, is that, as I said, you have a curated collection of what's available and good for us to use at the different price points available for us.
Yep. I work hard to do that. And I think, and there are plenty of times where someone will say to me, oh my goodness, that's just too expensive. And I'll say, well, let's look at something else. And I will find something that's not so expensive, but that will also be nice for what you're doing with it. And then there have actually been things too that I've bought that I thought, you know what, the quality is not here. And I will either mark them down with a note on it as to why I'm not happy with it, or I've returned some things. Not much over the years, very little, but still, I want to feel happy when somebody walks out the door with their yarn. I want to feel like they're going to be happy.
We are coming out of the pandemic as we record this, and things are wonderfully getting back to normal again. What are the next steps for the shop as normalcy comes back?
We are finally starting to talk about classes a little bit more. We've sort of dipped our toes in there with some in some smaller ways. But now we've got a list of classes we think we'd like to do for fall project type things. And I think it's just a matter of figuring out how many people will be comfortable within a class and a little bit of the logistics of it. But we're ready to start doing that again. We've missed the Fiber Festival of New England last year, which was sad, but that's on again this year. So I'm gearing up for that, working on a new design to hopefully be ready for then. And looking forward to having that fair atmosphere that you get at something like that. I'm excited to be doing that again.
Well, I will definitely see you there. I also am very excited for the return of the Fiberfest of New England. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me this morning.
My pleasure.
I mentioned the crocheted scarf that I saw in Marji's shop made with scraps of koigu, and she just happened to have a bag of partial skeins available that I was able to buy from her. It was an incredible score. Thank you for sharing your partials with me, Marji, and thank you for having me in the shop. Normally, I would fit in a song right now, but this really is shaping up to be a long episode, so we are just going to move along to Glastonbury, Connecticut, and visit Village Wool. I am in Village Wool now in Glastonbury, Connecticut, and I'm in the second room. And I just was at Marji's yarn shop and talking about how much I love the second room. So here I am in the second room, focusing here before I go back into the first room. Village Wool is jam-packed in all of the best ways. Here in the second room, if you are a short person, you might need some help to get up to the top shelf. But we have all sorts of yarns here. I'm walking by some Croft. I'm walking by some Malabrigo. Here's a bunch of Cascade. There's a Lang. There's a Rowan. There's Sirdar. Sandnes Garn. That's good to see. I haven't seen this since I was in New York. Oh, gosh. Like right before the pandemic. When Vogue Knitting Live was going on, and they were talking about how they were going to start importing it. I see tacky yarns. I see Juniper Moon. It's really just a wonderful collection of yarns in a space that is basically the size of maybe 2 generously sized living rooms. It's incredible how much they have fit into this shop. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I just touched some Juniper Moon Harriet. Oh, it's 100% baby alpaca. That's why I had to stop and pat it some more. There's some Noro here that I haven't seen many other places. The Crayon Air. It's bulky, maybe an Aran. I have all sorts of colors available in it. I might come back and grab that just because I haven't seen that before. They do have a winding setup here for those buying hanks. And oh, they have Amano. I just learned about Amano yarns when I was recently in Peru. And here is more. Oh my gosh. This is their Mayu. It is 60% alpaca, 20% cashmere, 20% silk. The luster is amazing. It's beautifully tonal. Oh my gosh. Okay, I might have to pick up some of that too. My husband's waiting in the cart. Would be really great if he would stay there. This is going to be a dangerous store for me. Okay. The front of store has the 4x4 cube shelves in it. Again, just jam-packed with things. There's a huge collection of buttons running across the top and quite a few pattern books across the top of them as well. And I always love to see, when I come into a yarn shop, I always love to see customers just sitting and knitting. You know that they have a good community going when that's going on. Wonderland Yarns. This is a hand dyer from Vermont. And that's here. They have a really great selection of yarns here. This is not one I get to come to a lot because it's sort of just outside my driving comfort zone. Like, not that I mean, obviously I'm comfortable driving this far. I don't mean that, but I mean, there's yarn shops that are closer to me. And so I don't think to come here very often, but man, I'm really impressed with what they have. I'm going to go track down Marion and have a chat with her. Hold on just a sec. Marion and I settled into some seats near the front of her shop, so you're going to hear some traffic sounds now and then as we chat. Please excuse that. It was a wonderful discussion with Marion, and I hope that you enjoy it. So I'm here in Village Wool with the owner, Marion. Thank you for taking the time to sit down with me for a few minutes.
You're very welcome, Anne. I really enjoy the fact that you've come to visit us and are promoting the shop hop this year.
Well, thank you. I love the shop hop. I was so sad. It was understandable last year that it needed to be closed down, but I was really glad that you guys decided to do it this year. Very, very happy to have that bit of normalcy back. I am here in your shop. I have to admit, it's a shop I don't often get to because I have other shops closer to me. But as I'm walking through, I'm seeing all these yarns that you have in stock that I don't see very often in other stores around here. So Dye Gilpin, there's some Noro I haven't seen. Your selection of Rowan is amazing. I don't even know what to, this is more observational than, than a question. Amano yarns from Peru. This is a very dangerous store for me to be in right now. I wonder if I could ask, how do you decide what you want to bring into your shop?
Mostly it's personal preference. I mean, my 2 criteria are decent quality and good colors, basically. But then after that, I like to experiment with different things. So if I particularly like to support smaller, more independent, like Dye Gilpin or Erica Knight. The Amano project is really interesting to me because they're all about treating the fur-bearing animals really, really well, so they get a very good quality of fiber from those llamas and alpacas. And Mirasol project that Knitting Fever distributes, they're all about a fair trade kind of thing too. So that's kind of how I choose. But also I like to represent some of the mainstream like Taki, Rowan, Barocco, just because I think they have a really good design sensibility. They have a good quality control in terms of the kinds of things that they ask their mills to produce for them. And they have a really good variety of price points as well. You can get a better quality, and it's more expensive than your Michaels or your AC Moore, but it's not crazy out there.
We've been here about 3 years, so I don't know the history of a lot of the yarn stores that are on the shop hop. How long have you been here?
This store has been in this location for about 33 years.
Oh, wow.
I did not own it the entire time. I was a customer here. The woman who owned it originally had it down in South Glastonbury, and then she moved to this location, and she was here for about 13 years, and then unfortunately she passed away unexpectedly. And her husband wanted to sell the business, and I decided to try it. So it was 20 years ago that I purchased the business, and I have been here ever since.
That is amazing. Did you have any background in business or anything before you took on the shop?
No. So that's been a challenge. The business side of things has always been challenging. I really love yarn. I love teaching knitting. I love my customers. I love seeing what's out there. I'm not really great at paperwork and keeping track of stuff. So I'm always very behind in that part of my life. But nevertheless, it's been a great experience.
Yeah. You mentioned you love teaching. Have you started teaching since the sort of reset of everything?
For years and years, we've had a Thursday night knitting class, which is just an open drop-in. Okay. And it usually met from 6 to 7:30. So that you could work on whatever you wanted. You could start a new project from scratch, learn a new technique from scratch, or bring in something that you're having trouble with, and you would be guaranteed an hour and a half of somebody's attention and time. And usually that class fluctuated between about 5 to 10 people on a Thursday, and that was manageable. We never got huge crowds. Obviously, with the pandemic, we had to suspend that for a little while. So I was doing more private appointments and that kind of thing. We are going to start the Thursday evenings up again. I keep hesitating just because other things have gotten in the way. But sometime this summer, we're going to be having the drop-in class again. So
that's great to hear. I love all these little signs of things coming back to normal. As we head into the shop hop, do you have any special plans for people who come through with the shop hop, or is there anything coming up on your calendar this summer that you want to share with listeners?
For the shop hop, I haven't actually decided what our kind of project is going to be yet, because it's still out there in August, but there will be something. But I don't know what it's going to be yet, because we don't have a theme this year. We were all told we could do whatever we wanted. But the other thing that's coming up before the shop hop, because it's been 20 years since I purchased this business, we are going to have a 20th anniversary sale starting on the 20th of July. For 2 weeks. So that should be a big deal as well.
That's great to know. That's wonderful to know. I see that you have, going through your shop, it's not just knitting. You also have crochet represented in your store models. Do you teach crochet, or do you just have a fluency yourself so you can help people out when they come in?
I do teach crochet, and of the people who work here, 3 of us are proficient crocheters, and 1 of us is a basic crocheter. Okay. So we can, and I like to crochet almost as much as I like to knit. I learned crochet first, actually. So I always have a couple of projects on the go as well as my knitting. So I'm not an exclusive knitter. And the one thing that I like to bill myself personally as is someone who can understand complex crochet directions. So when you're having an issue with what does it mean to do a half double around the front post, I can tell you.
That is a rare thing, I will say, among yarn store owners, to have someone who understands crochet that well. So that's awesome.
I'm good at figuring out directions in knitting and crochet. It just is one of those lucky skills that I ended up with. So if you're ever puzzled, I usually can figure it out. It may take me a little while, but I can figure it out. Right.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Marian, for sitting down with me.
Oh, you're very welcome. It was very nice to meet you.
Marian's shop was full of incredible yarn and had a group of ladies sitting to knit, which is always a sign of a great yarn shop. Thank you, Marian, for taking the time to speak with me. We're going to hop over to Windsor now and visit with Rachel Schuster of U&U Fiber Arts, which is another shop that always has someone there knitting. It's where you're likely to find me on Thursday afternoons when the weather is nice. Rachel actually had the time to take me around the shop herself. Rachel's actually going to come around with me on this walk around. But one of the things I really love about Rachel's shop is, again, building on the whole idea of this being a community space, is there are all kinds of couches and chairs that are super comfy to sit on. And before COVID, when we were all like cramming in here for Thursday knitting, we could have like 20 people, maybe more some weeks. I don't know, like
folding chairs from upstairs and fill the aisleways. And then people come in to shop and you'd be like, excuse me, like you're kind of move out of the way. Yeah.
You have to like stand up and get out of the way. Yeah, it was amazing. But there are all sorts of like odds and endsy couches and chairs and things. And some of them are covered in crochet. Some of them are draped in shawls. It's just a really warm and inviting place to come in and be. So it's one of my favorite shops on the tour. And then also I love, Rachel has an extensive collection of sheep related items and stuffed animals and statuettes from decades ago up to the modern day. So when you come to the shop, make sure you look up at the top of all the shelves and get a look at all of those. Let's go ahead and start here at the beginning of your shop. Okay. You come into this beautiful rainbow.
You walk into the rainbow of basically all the acrylics are in the front. I have a very nice, soft, high quality acrylic that's also anti-pilling. It does have a rating for being great for baby use. So it's actually one of the things I usually recommend. I have another acrylic that's a different brand that's a multicolor. Unfortunately, multicolor acrylics right now are really hard to get a hold of. So what I have in stock is what I have, and unfortunately they will not be around for long.
So over here we're starting to get into the hand-dyed yarns that you have available, and it's quite an extensive selection, I think. And the wonderful thing about this is just like looking at them. A lot of these, maybe all of them, I'm not sure. Some of these are new to me, the beach bum, for instance. But the other ones I'm seeing are either extremely local or, from the New England area.
Yeah, so I try to keep my hand dyers local. I am branching out of that a little bit. Beach Bum is out of Northern Massachusetts, so I still consider her local. Everybody else is the people that you are familiar with that we were talking about for that mini skein set. They will also be here the 2 Saturdays of the shop hop. So we're going to split up the local hand dyers. Lane and Lotus will be here the 14th with Silver Key Stitches. And then the last day of the shop hop, which is Saturday the 21st, we will have Sassy Black Yarns, Cup of Tea Yarn, and Harbor City Yarn Company, as well as a self-striping stock yarn from Florida. A self-striping hand dyer is kind of hard to find. There's only a few of them around, so I'm really excited to get hers in. So my hand dyer wall is definitely amazing. And then there's a few of my own kind of on the bottom there. I like to play around, and I do a hand dyeing class, usually early fall, where you can do a mini set or you can do a sock blank. So keep an eye out for that. Usually that's in September-ish.
Yeah. And you can just do that outside, huh? Out front.
Yep. We do it outside, and then you would just rinse at home. But I have some hot pots and big pots to do it in. All the dyes are already set to go when you get here. But it's a lot of fun to just play around with hand dyeing.
The layout of the store has changed since COVID happened. So I actually don't know what's around this corner here as we're moving around. So you have like your bulkies here?
So then when you come to the back side of the hand dyers, you got all of my bulkies or super bulkies. And again, that's going to be a huge range of fibers from wools and alpacas and acrylic blends. There's even some, I guess you'd call it terry cloth. It's kind of like what you'd make a bathrobe out of. So that's kind of a fun thing. And then as you kind of move down the same aisleway, you go into worsted weights again. Mixes of fibers galore. There's a little bit of everything here.
Okay, and then as we move to the back wall of the shop, we start to get into your plant fiber yarns.
Yeah, so now you're kind of into the cotton zone and cotton blend zone. We've got lots of different weights of cottons, things that would be great wearables, things that would make great dishcloths, things that would make great baby items. Bamboo Pop's probably my second best baby yarn, but it makes lovely adult wearables. I have a lot of people who make tops with it or shawls with it. It's just a lovely workhorse yarn for any of those kinds of items.
Yeah, it drapes really nicely, and it has a nice sheen to it too.
It does, yeah. So if you're making a wearable, you might want to go down a needle size and make sure that your garment's going to hold. Yeah.
Yeah, because the bamboo will stretch a little over time. It'll grow a little bit. Okay, so let's continue moving around here. We have like this center section here, which is where we used to sit. This is where all the chairs and stuff used to be centered. One of the samples sort of in this area that you have worked up is a green crocheted poncho.
I was a crocheter first, so that's my first love. A few years ago, well, probably more than 6 now, I went to a CGOA, which is the Crochet Guild of America. And one of the complaints of crocheters was that yarn stores are called knit stores and knit this, knit that. So I was very conscious of that with naming my store because crochet is my first love, really. And I do crochet. It just depends on what it is and what I want to be making. I do both. If I'm making a garment, most of the time that's going to be knit. Unless it's like a nice little over-the-top summer. Yeah, what I'm wearing is
like a combo.
Both combo, exactly. It's crocheted at the top and then knit in the body and then crocheted at the edging. So summer tops are great for crochet. I don't do a lot of fingering weight crochet. Just my personal preference. I don't know. I need to probably start getting into that a little more because there's some amazing, especially shawls in fingering weight crochet.
Well, I feel like fingering weight crochet is almost like a new thing. 20 years ago, there was lace crochet that was done in thread, and then there was all the other crochet, which was done in worsted. And I feel like a lot of designers about that time started saying, why aren't we using this finer stuff and getting better drape and things like that?
Right. Yeah. Drape and shape and all of that. Yes, you have a lot more control when you're using a lighter weight yarn or a different weight yarn. But yeah, I mean, they both have their great things and they both have their not so great attributes, and so I think it's great to have both in your wheelhouse for sure. Crochet offers a lot of interesting things as well. There's hairpin lace, there's broomstick lace, and so those are things that I think have kind of gotten lost probably and left in the 70s a bit, but I love them and I've done classes on them. They're fun, extra interesting stitches to do. There's always something interesting and shaping and things to do. Yeah. So, and then Tunisian crochet is actually one of those things that has made a comeback and I think helps with the fingering weight stuff and the drape and all of that.
Yeah. One thing that is interesting about Rachel's shop is you will not find any straight knitting needles in your shop. Do you want to talk about your philosophy behind this?
Yeah, I'm a little bit new school on that. I'm huge on ergonomics. My thing is that I want to make sure that you're working as safely as possible for as long as possible. And when you have a straight needle, you're having a lot of extra load past the side of your hand. So if there is one thing that I could change for all knitters, it would be to put them on circular needles. It's just safer. It causes a lot less back strain and wrist strain and all those things that cause us those injuries that we're so conscious of. So I think it's really important. And that goes not only for knitting, but also crochet. I mean, when you talk traditional Tunisian, you're talking about, again, a long crochet hook that's 12 to 14 inches long. The weight of your project is sitting on that. It's just not good for you. So I have most of the Tunisian hooks I have and sell most often are going to be basically like a circular knitting needle. So you're going to put the hook head on and put a cord on it and work on and off that hook or cord. And that goes into regular crochet hooks as well. I'm the only person in the regional area that carries the Furls crochet hooks, which are very ergonomic. You've probably seen ads for them.
Yeah, the handles are shaped to fit better in your hand.
Yep. So I have a variety of those. You're always welcome to come in and try tools. I'm big on, you don't want the plumber showing up with a $2 wrench, right? Like he needs really good tools. It's the same thing for us. We need good tools to do our best work, and it's going to keep you safer and working longer. And I have more than just Furls hooks. I have lots and lots of different crochet hooks. I feel that everybody's body is a little bit different, and so there's always going to be something that is going to work for you better than something else. So there's always personal preferences, and that's awesome. I want to have a variety of that. So you're more than welcome to come try. We even did a crochet hook tasting once.
Very nice.
Which was really fun.
We have another sort of island here in the middle of the shop. Do you want to talk about what's on that?
Yeah, so I call that Sock Island, and basically it's all of your sock weight yarns, varieties of color runs, and there is some self-striping, there is some wool-free, there's some recycled wool-free, so there's a whole variety of different things, whole rainbow of stuff. So it's kind of a fun little island.
Then we have this one last run of yarn here along the wall.
So we do. We have a big wall of our, I would call it the DK and sport weight yarn wall. Again, you got a variety of fibers, everything from wools and bamboos to wool-free that you wouldn't expect to be wool-free.
That's wool-free?
Yeah, this one down here is called Nymph, and it's a wool-free.
Oh, it's cotton and polyamide. And it looks like a really fuzzy wool.
Yeah, it's really funky.
Wow.
But
Interesting.
it's really nice. It's really soft, and it makes a great wearable item or a shawl. That's a shawl right there. That's a lot of fun. And then I do have a small tasting of some lace weight over here and a little bit of mohair because, everybody needs mohair once in a while.
Yeah.
And for the non-mohair people, I do have another yarn that does not have any mohair in it.
But
it has that little bit of an alpaca halo, so you don't have to worry about the mohair.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, thank you for the tour, Rachel.
You're very welcome.
After a walk around the shop, we settled in to chat about opening the shop hop, and building the shop as a community space. You are the newest shop on the I-91 shop hop, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I've only been open, by the time shop hop happens, it'll be closer to 3 years. So September's my 3-year mark.
A lot of knitters and crocheters, we all sit back and think, it would be so wonderful to have a yarn shop. What was it that... You're not supposed to laugh when I say that.
It's true. It's true. I don't know what really made it like something necessary for me to do. It was something we kind of talked about for a long time. We have been a military family and kind of been all over, and yarn and people who like yarn and making friendships through those interests has been super important for me. When we came back from being overseas, we went to an area called Leavenworth, Kansas, and it was a really cute little old Midwestern town. And when we drove through town the first time, I was like, this town needs a yarn store. Of course, at that time, we were still active duty military, and it was totally not possible. But my dreams were fulfilled by someone who became a very close friend of mine, and she happened to open a store. She says to me the one day, she's like, I didn't really want another friend, but you walked in my life and you weren't going to go away. So anyway, so her yarn store was very much a family place for us and became a big influential part in wanting to open a store. Very long story short, when we moved to the Connecticut area, there was another store here in Windsor, totally unrelated to me. And I had been in her store previously on the shop hop years before. And when we got here, I walked in her store and she was having this huge clearance sale. And I was like, what's going on here? And she goes, oh, I'm closing. And I was like devastated because I was so excited to have a yarn store in my area. So I think that just kind of started the discussion process in a much more serious note of, what would it look like to buy her out, which clearly did not happen. But a couple years down the line, actually getting my own act together and writing a business plan and opening my own store, also in Windsor, just kind of coincidentally. It just happens to be a great location, close to Hartford, close to the airport, nice central location right off of I-91, which is great. And I love this building. I love the area of town I'm in. I'm right on the town green, which is great. They have lots of events out there, so I'm always open during those events. It's just a great central place to be. And there's a coffee shop across the street, so you can't beat that.
Yeah, it really is a great location here. Windsor's a lovely little town, and you're right in the middle of it, as you said. So anyone who's doing the shop hop, if you sort of hit here around lunchtime, there's lots of little restaurants around that you can stop into and fuel up for the next leg. One of the things that I love about your shop, and I know listeners who also follow me on Instagram know that pretty much every Thursday I'm posting a picture of being here at Knit Club. So one of the things that I really love about your shop, though, is that there is this great sense of community here, and you've done an excellent job of fostering that. I know some of our knit clubbers, I think, were saying that they're here pretty much every day, just sitting outside and knitting. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that came to be, or your sort of goals in getting that going?
I mean, I always said to people that this was a community space fronted by a yarn shop. And I do completely mean that. I'm very much want people to be in here. I'm very happy to try to cater to those groups. It started with a Thursday group. My first group here in Connecticut actually was at the Windsor Locks Library. They moved over here. At one point, they were doing a once a month here and then 3 weeks at the library. And then COVID happened, and we all know what happened there. So I was open sooner, obviously, than the library, especially being able to be outside, having all this lovely green space around us. And we started meeting outside really as early as last June, trying to maintain our social distance and wear our masks and all those important things. But we were able to still be community, and I think that was a really big thing. And they've been invited to go back to the library, but they still meet here instead. So yeah, I mean, the people that come and visit are always different depending on what day of the week it is, but there's almost always somebody sitting outside unless it's really, really freezing or downpouring. We're out there enjoying this space. And now that our COVID restrictions are a little bit lifted, if the weather is bad enough, we will sit indoors. I try not to keep a huge crowd, but if there's, 3 or 4 of us in here, we're okay with that. I'm just trying to, again, keep that number limited. But it is a community space. I mean, we learn so much from each other. I learn from everybody every day, something new, some new technique, things people like, things people don't like, things that are fun to try. So I just think there's always something that we can get from one another, and it's just so important. And we're not always even talking about yarn. Yeah. We have quite a bunch of people who are quilters. So we have quilter conversations. We've had conversations about kids. We've obviously had conversations about COVID, so on and so forth. So basically anything, and we're a nice, understanding group and very accepting of anybody. So it's a fun variety of people for sure.
Yeah. And the range of talent that these women possess is really, well, women and men possess, because, everybody is welcome, and we do have male people. They're called men. We do have men come and knit with us as well. But the amount of talent some of these knitters have is amazing. And the fact that they're really free with sharing what they know and discussing, like sometimes we get into, heated discussions about knitting, and what is the best whatever for what someone's trying to do. And everyone puts their information out there.
Our latest heated discussion, which is kind of totally weird and off topic. So we're doing the Hat Not Hay program, and I know you've been a part of that as well. And now I am an official drop-off location, which I think is awesome. But we've had a discussion over this one particular shade of yarn and whether it's blue or green.
It's totally green.
Yeah, you were here for that. And I'm still being harassed for it because I definitely consider it part of my blue palette. But it's kind of an aqua color. And for me, aqua is the color of water, which I think is blue. So I put it with my blue. A lot of my ladies are telling me, no, it's green. So, there's that sometimes. Heated discussions are.
I will say I'm definitely in the green camp. But that said, Shira posted a picture the other day of her and one of her helpers, and they were wearing hats, and there were hats in the background, and some of the hats in the background were that color. So even though it's, an issue for debate, they are accepting them.
I think it depends on what you pair it with and what room you're standing in wearing that color. We have those lovely discussions of which sock heel is the best. Yes. And yes, we have people that are very talented and do amazing, amazing things. And then we have a lot of beginners. And even if you're a beginner, people come in and they go, I'm a beginner, I don't do that well. And I go, but you're doing it and you're enjoying it. And that's the entire point. And nobody here is ever going to put you down because you're a beginner and you made a mistake or did something wrong in your project or whatever. I've been told if you can't see it riding by on a horse, then it's fine. Just keep it there. Right. So
if anyone notices a mistake in your knitting, they're standing too close and they need to back up a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, you're not social distancing.
Yeah,
back off.
Social distance. We have rules for this now. Is there anything coming up on the calendar that you want to make people aware of, or any plans that you have coming up that we should know about?
Plans for the shop hop. Right now, my kit goal plan, which is still with my dyers, is that we are going to do a local dyer mini skein set. So you will get a mini skein from Lane and Lotus Silver Key Stitches, Sassy Black Yarns, Cup of Tea Yarns, and then our newest hand dyer, Hardware City Yarn Company. So it should be a fun little packet of yarn. We hopefully will have a sample made up just so you can kind of see how the colors play, but really it's going to kind of be up to you to kind of find a good project and do what you want to do with it. We are also, I have been doing a knit along and a crochet along project via Zoom. pretty much monthly, and those are going to be announced usually on my Instagram and Facebook, but definitely through my newsletter. So the way that works is if you buy the yarn from me, it's free to join the Zoom. If not, it's $10 to join. So you can always use Stash Yarn. I'm fine with you knitting here on Stash Yarn, but I mean, obviously it's awesome when you buy my yarn. Right. But I totally understand you have a stash. I have a stash, right. Mine's a little bit embarrassing, but anyway. So we do have some projects coming up for sure. So keep an eye out on that. And if anybody wants to join my newsletter, you can always do that either on my website or just give me a call and I'm happy to link you up.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Rachel. Thanks a bunch, Rachel. I look forward to knitting with you and the Thursday afternoon crew soon. In reality, this is where my day 2 ended, but as I said, I have a giveaway to give away, so we are going to time travel into day 3 of my crawl along the I-91 shop hop and visit Northampton Wools. Northampton, Massachusetts is one of my favorite places to be on a summer day. I actually went to college at Smith, which is basically the west side of Northampton. There are 4 other colleges in the area, and as a college town, there are music venues and great little shops and a ton of delicious and affordable restaurants. Plan to eat in Northampton. Some of my favorites are India House, which, full disclosure, I was a waitress at for a couple of years when I was in college. Sylvester's has a great brunch. Fitzwilly's is a tavern-y burger sort of place. There are Italian and Japanese and Thai restaurants. You will find something for everyone you're with. And if you have to compromise and pick up something here and something there to make everyone happy, Child's Park is a great place for a picnic. Parking can be tricky in Northampton, but behind the building that Northampton Wools is in, there's open air metered parking and a large parking garage. Now, those who listen to the podcast regularly know that pretty much whenever I do an on-site recording, something goes wrong. In this case, my walkthrough of Northampton Wools didn't get saved properly, so let me just describe it for you because I've been in enough times. Northampton Wools is located in a lovely old storefront with a corner entrance and large glass windows along the front. When the shop is open and the weather is nice, there's usually a rack of hand knits and several baskets of yarn out front. When you enter the store, the perimeter of the shop to your left and at the back of the store is full of lovely yarns on shelving, including quite a few by local and local-ish producers that you will hear about in the interview. To your right is the storefront windows that always have something interesting on display. There is a table in the middle for gathering as well as some additional displays of yarn. One thing that I think gets overlooked by quick browsers are the stairs in the back corner of the shop. I think it's easy to just assume that that's a storage space, but head down them and you'll find books, baby knits, kits, and the clearance section. It's not as full of yarn as the top floor, but it's close, so be sure to head down and take a look. The store owner, Linda Daniels, was out of town when I needed to come through on my early shop hop, but she very kindly arranged to chat with me on Zoom while I was in the shop. I'm here with Linda Daniels of Northampton Wool, one of my local yarn stores from when I was growing up way back in the day. Linda, thank you so much for meeting with me. I'm in your shop and you're on vacation and very kindly agreed to call in and talk to me. So thank you for that.
Well, thanks for arranging this. Zoom is amazing, isn't it? Yeah, this is great. It's kind of fun. It's also my little look into the store while I'm gone. So, Kate, straighten up.
Nothing's burned down, though. I can vouch for that much.
Great.
How long has the shop been here in Northampton?
The shop first was opened by a woman named Jacqueline Severini in 1981, and it actually opened on the other side of the wall that you're facing. She opened in the space next door, and the shop was there from 1981 basically through 1990. I purchased the store in 1988. I did not purchase it from Jacqueline. I started to work for Jacqueline in 1982 after she had been opened for just a year. And I started by teaching the beginner knitting classes and then started working part-time and then started working more and more hours. And when Jacqueline was ready to sell the business, my family and I were not in a position to purchase it. My husband worked for the railroad and they were on strike. We were selling our home to move into a different home. We were going to buy my parents' house. And Jacqueline and I had become so close over the years that it was impossible to negotiate. It just wasn't going to happen. She actually ended up selling it to a woman named Marji. And Marji was a very strong new ager. And Marji bought it. She did not know how to knit. She was a city planner, but she purchased it because her psychic counselor told her that she needed to get in touch with the softer, more beautiful side of her life. She purchased it and we had met and talked. And I said, okay, I love this business and I think I can work for you. We'll see what happens. So when she purchased it, basically, I was then the store. She was here to pick. She came in, once or twice a week to make deposits and pay the bills and basically check that everything was okay. And at that same time, the city dug up all of Armory Street, which is the side street right there. So it made it nearly impossible for people to get into the store. At the end of 10 months, everything kind of went back to normal on the street. But Marji then said, I don't think this is really for me. All the energy is coming from you. Would you be interested in buying it now? And by that time, my life had gone back to normal. We were moved into a house, didn't have a mortgage. My husband was back to work. And I was like, I think I can do that. So that's how we ended up owning the store. I didn't expect to be in business ever in my life, but that's kind of where the path went. And I've never looked back, and it has done nothing but bring success, joy, and happiness to me.
That's fantastic. That's such a great story. And it's a lovely location. It's you do a wonderful job with your windows. And then actually like the building itself is a lovely building. And then you have had such interesting experiences as the owner. You have actually knit for several movies that have filmed in the area. How does that even happen?
That's one of the things that I mean. We got on this path and it's led me to places that I never, ever imagined. At the time that I was knitting at the movies, I had moved the store from behind the wall that you're facing to down onto Pleasant Street, where the Lime Red tea shop is right now. And in that little space, we continued to do business. And one day we got a phone call from, it's kind of like the scout person for the movie, who said that they were going to be in the area filming the movie Cider House Rules. And were we capable of knitting for the movie? And I said, I think so. Let's talk. So a couple of weeks later, the actual costume designer came in to the store. We met and talked about what she was thinking about and what it would entail. And could I do it in a timely enough fashion? And once we agreed to all of that, she then went back and drew up a few pictures. We met one more time to talk about the pattern stitches that she wanted and to do measurements for Michael Caine and for Charlize Theron. I didn't get to meet either one of them, unfortunately. I was the worker bee, and the costume designer did all the fitting. So knitting, I think I ended up knitting about 4 sweaters and several hats and scarves and things for the orphans in there. And then that just led to being published in Interweave Knits. A couple of the patterns that I did were published there. And then Storybooks approached me, and I ended up writing the Northampton Wools sweater pattern book for the shop. And it's just kind of continued. I then did a lot of designing for Frog Tree Yarns when they were in business. And I've done some designing for Plymouth Yarns now as well.
So obviously you must enjoy designing.
I do. I haven't done a whole lot of designing in the last year or two for several reasons. First of all, it takes a lot of time, and running the shop and trying to keep the shop going has really been more and more time consuming. But the other thing that I'm feeling is like there is now a huge number of really good designers out there who are accessible now through Ravelry. And I don't mind designing for the shop or doing shop patterns. But I feel like Ravelry has it covered as far as the other designers to go. So we have fun just doing a few exclusive things in store, but I don't need to publish anymore.
Yeah.
So
as I said, I am sitting here in the shop and I have 3 of your yarns that I've pulled off the shelves that I was hoping I could ask you about.
yes.
The first is the Finn yarn, who I understand is sort of local-ish dyer. Can you tell, this is the only shop I've seen his work in. Can you tell me about it?
Yeah. So Richard DeVries is the name of the owner and the dyer, and he has been around for a while and probably popular in kind of spotty. So you'll find him in shops, but they're spread out. He's actually from Canada and had trained with Koigu. So his colors, when you see his colors on the wall, they tend to be reminiscent of the kind of Koigu look. And I've met Richard at a trade show a few years ago, and we've always carried a little bits of his yarn. He does great sock yarns and lace weight yarns. And this year we decided to go with his hand-dyed worsted weight yarns, just because we didn't have anything that was really like that in that gauge. But it's a lovely yarn, and Richard is a delight to work with. If you hold the skein up and kind of hold one end of it, you see how very straight up and down, it does not flop. It really stays there. Part of that is because it is wound in the skein so very tightly. And it's wound that tightly because Richard likes his yarn to stay very neat. And loosely wound yarn tends to come undone and the labels tend to slip off. So he makes a point of winding them very tightly, and then tells all of the shops, when your customer buys it, tell them to take the label off, unwind the skein, and actually, like a good wine, let it breathe for a couple of hours before you wind it up on the ball winder. Bump it up a little bit, let that air get in there and restore the fibers. So we really enjoy working with him. I'm sure Kate showed you the night shift shawl that we have knit out of that yarn. It is a merino, and it is just really has a beautiful hand when you're done with it. So we really enjoy working with him.
What first caught my eye was in the back corner, you have some kits of his work. The kits were just so joyful looking. And then Katie took me over and showed me the rest of his work too. So
he's one of the people I really enjoy working with, just because he has a great sense of humor. And all of those kits are little shawl kits that are based on cocktails. So each one comes with a little, shot glass and a little plastic ice cube to put in the freezer so you can enjoy your knitting. Not necessarily condoning knitting while you're drinking, because that can end up in disaster, but enjoy it after you've knitted.
Yeah, use it to celebrate after. So another yarn that you have here is actually Plymouth yarn. So it's one people might be familiar with. It's their baby alpaca worsted. But what I wanted to ask you about is, rather than saying it's superwash, they're calling it easy wash. Can you explain the distinction between the two?
Yes. So this is a brand new configuration for them of their baby alpaca worsted weight. They've had a worsted weight alpaca before, but it was a much lighter, fluffier kind of look, and it was not a superwash at all. So this is a brand new yarn for them. And the Easy Care wash is something that we're going to begin seeing in the industry more and more. There are a lot of yarns from yarn companies that are coming out with what is going to become an international symbol for that Easy Care wash. When companies create a superwash wool, they end up usually having to put the wool through a chemical bath, and that strips the scales off of the wool so that it doesn't shrink. This Easy Care is instead an enzyme bath, so it's much more environmentally friendly, does not create the waste that the chemical baths do. And it means that you can machine wash this alpaca in cold water and in a gentle cycle, and then lay it flat to dry. If you try to machine wash it and throw it in the dryer, it's going to felt. It doesn't felt at the same rate that regular wool will, but it will not be the same kind of fabric that you first put in the washing machine. So it's meant to make caring for the garment or the knitted piece easier, but not completely carefree. But it creates a marvelous feel, doesn't it? You can't touch that and not go, oh my God, what is this?
A lot of superwash, not all superwash wools, but I would say a lot of superwash wools sort of lose that wonderful wool feeling from going through that chemical process, or from being blended with nylon or whatever the process is that for that particular superwash. But this just feels like a very lovely alpaca yarn.
Exactly. I know what you mean. The superwashes tend to feel kind of shiny, slippery.
Yeah.
They kind of glide through your hand without really feeling like fiber. But again, if you hold this one up by one end, you'll see it flop. This is actually the draping test.
If I hold the hank upright and then put my hands on the bottom and let the top go.
There you go. Okay. So it's going to be a very drapey garment when you're done. So you'll do shorter sweaters because you're going to get some length later on, and shawls that will, just flow around your body. So I think it's going to be a very big seller in the store. We've already started to sell a lot of it.
Well, and rightly so. It is so soft. Goodness. Kate's actually the one who drew my attention to the Easy Wash yarn that you have. And I'm so grateful she did, because that's one thing. I talk a lot about wool on the podcast and in my social media and stuff. And that's the one thing that I know is something that will prevent people from buying something. They don't like the chemically treated wool. So it's wonderful that they have come up with another way to do this. So the last one I wanted to talk to you about is labeled as local over in its corner. And it's the Bloom Woolen Yarns Yearling that you have. And looking at the back, the fiber shed is from Western Massachusetts, which is where we are. And it was hand dyed in Huntington, Massachusetts, and spun in Southern Vermont. So the miles on this are very short.
Yes.
Can you tell about this one?
This past winter, we were open, and Lisa came in to the shop with her daughter and purchased some yarn, and we started to talk. And she offered and asked if I might be looking for some part-time help. So I wrote her name down and took her number, and off she went. And then out of the blue, I got an email from her saying, this is who I am. I asked you about working for you in the winter, but I really love yarn and decided to start a yarn company. And I was like, whoa, what happened? But she has 5 sheep, but she is also gathering, is a good word, gathering a lot of the area wool that sheep farmers in the area would normally just toss. They throw it in the landfill. Use whatever means they can to get rid of it, because it's just not cost effective for a lot of these smaller sheep farms to do anything with it. So just like Katie from up at Bobolink Yarns in Vermont, Lisa down here is gathering together pounds and pounds of wool. She has somehow, I think this was also the stimulating thing for her. She moved into a house in Huntington, purchased a home in Huntington that had 600 pounds of fleece stored in a barn. And so she is working through all of that poundage and gathering more. She is trying all of the local spinneries. So this first group was 35 pounds of yarn. She had spun up at Green Mountain Spinnery in Putney. And if you know Green Mountain and you look at Lisa's yarn at this yearling, you can kind of see the Green Mountain fingerprint, let's say, on that yarn. It has the same kind of spin with a very almost single ply fluffiness to it. And then Lisa took it all home and plant dyed it all. So she's using all natural materials to dye all of these. So the colors, when you use plant dyes, the colors end up being kind of subtle. You don't get any bright, intense colors with that process yet, but she is beginning her company. She's got another, I can't remember how many pounds now, up at Bartlett Mills, and they are going to be spinning a DK. So that will most likely be a 2-ply yarn, and she will then dye that. And I already told her we wanted it all. So we are hopefully going to really grow with her, help her grow her business and really be able to offer that, as you can't get that much more local unless I try to have sheep in front of the store, and it's not going to happen. So we're very excited to see her and her process. She has a real love of fiber and creating it. And I brought a skein on vacation with me because I'm going to try and knit up a pair of fingerless mitts so we have something to show for what it looks like when it is knit. So that's the story about Bloom. And Bloom is the name of her company, and Yearling is the name of the yarn.
That's wonderful. That's a great story. There are so many sheep farmers out there who are raising the animals for other reasons. They're raising them as meat animals. And so all that wool, just, it has to be taken off the sheep for health and safety reasons for the animal. And then, it just isn't, as you said, it's not financially feasible for them to.
When Lisa brought the yarn, we were talking, and Kristen Nicholas used to work for Classic Elite Yarns, and Classic Elite is now gone, but Kristen has written a number of books. And if you search on Ravelry for her designs, 10 years ago, Kristen was a very big name in the industry. She's since moved to Leiden out there in Western Mass, and she and her husband have a big sheep farm. And Lisa approached her about gathering her wool. And Kristen said, we don't really take care of the sheep as adults in order to sell their wool. And that's the other thing. To raise sheep for wool, there's a whole process to raising sheep for wool, but they raise sheep for meat. But what Kristen did say to Lisa was that they would be shearing their yearlings, their babies, and that Lisa would be able to purchase all of that. So we're looking forward to having that connection as well, because Kristen and I have been friends since 1981 when I first started working at Northampton Wools. So I that would be really meaningful for me to have some of her yarn in the store.
Absolutely. Really, that first clip is the nicest.
First clip, exactly.
I wanted to ask you before I go, is there anything on the calendar that listeners should be aware of? Or are you opening the shop back up for knit nights or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. In addition to the shop hop in August, which is the whole reason we're doing these podcasts, when I get back from vacation, we'll be prepping for two big things. One will be, we will start our semi-annual clearance sale along with the downtown Northampton sidewalk sales. That happens at the end of July. The sidewalk sales are the very last weekend in July. I think it's July 29th through August 1st. So I will be sending out emails, of course, but we will be having our clearance sale starting mid-July through probably mid-August. Then the shop hop will be the last, or right in the middle of August. And we will begin to open back up for classes in September. I've been doing a couple of knit along Zoom classes and some private lessons in the store, but we're not really ready for classes until September again. But that's what we've got in the next 2 months.
So local people should go to the website and get on your mailing list for updates.
Definitely.
Well, Linda, I will let you get back to your vacation.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Linda, for interrupting your vacation to tell us about your shop and the incredible experiences that you've been able to have because of your knitting, and for donating an amazing giveaway for my listeners. The giveaway is a yellow mesh tote full of goodies. First is a copy of the Northampton Wools knitting book, autographed by Linda herself. There's a needle roll for your straight needles, a Swedish dishcloth, a travel bottle of soak, a packet of colorful stitch markers, and a kit to knit the blocked out fingerless mitts designed by Linda in its own little project bag. We'll do the same as last time. Look for the post about the giveaway on my Instagram feed and follow the directions there to enter. Or if you're not on Instagram, send me an email at ann@ithoughtIknewhow.com. Now, Ann, got to remember to put the E on the end of the Ann. So ANNE@ithoughtIknewhow.com with the subject line Northampton Wools, and include your mailing address in the body of the email. I'm not doing anything with your mailing address. It's just there in case you win. Sometimes I find that when people win, like they're out of town or they're not checking emails, and sometimes it can take forever to get that mailing address back. So I just ask that you send me your mailing address right away. Get your entries in by midnight Pacific time on August 2nd, and I will announce the winner on August 3rd. If you're listening to this as soon as it's released, you do have a few hours before the giveaway from Yarn Barn closes. So be sure to hop over to Instagram or send that email for the Yarn Barn giveaway. I will be picking a winner in the morning. No more things before I go. This is an in-between episode, so we are just going to call this good. Thank you for coming along on day 2 of my I-91 shop hop adventure. Remember, if you'd like to do the hop yourself, it starts August 10th and runs to the 21st. Or if you are listening to this after the hop is over for 2021, be sure to find the I-91 Shop Hop Facebook group to get information on the next one. I will see you next week as we finish up our trip. In the meantime, thank you for listening and knitting with me for a bit. If you'd like to support the show, please visit patreon.com/I-thought-I-knew-how to make a monthly pledge. You may also consider making a purchase from one of our sponsors by visiting the website I-thought-I-knew-how.com and clicking the link at the top that says Be a Booster. While you are on the site, you can also find the show notes for each episode. Thank you ever so much to my patrons, to Knit New Haven, and to Morehouse Farm for sponsoring the podcast. Find me on my social media accounts as I Thought I Knew How, except on Twitter, where it's just Thought I Knew How. The groups on various platforms are all called I Thought I Knew How Podcast. Until next time, may you be blessed with stitches that never drop, yarn without joins, and plenty of time to knit.